In the face of the fearsome robot, Sword suddenly cried out, asking Indra why the hell she made it look like a giant spider. She smirked, gloating at the fact that this was her creation, known as the Battle Golem, with learning capabilities. Its name was Ryoke, and it wasn't as scary as it appeared to be. The reason it looked like a spider was that spiders were beneficial creatures. However, Sword argued that spiders either wrapped things up in webs or melted them into goo before eating them. Indra wondered if spiders in this world were really like that. Sword also mentioned that her naming sense didn't make any sense. She explained to him that in another world's language, Ryoke actually meant noble steed. So it was less like a spider and more like those humanoid golems that protected a city. It's not like she had spent the past 2 years just maintaining the mansion. Our protagonist claimed that once one had mastered the almighty art of magic, there were things one simply had to do. And that was to create a fully autonomous AI robot. Of course, Sword was too clueless to have any idea what she was talking about. She explained that the main core of the robot was installed in the deepest layer, protected by her barrier and security magic. No one was allowed to touch it. This Ryoke and the one back at the mansion could share data with each other through wireless access. Even if they ever fell out of sync, there was a backup core. Sword recalled the time Indra threw a tantrum and begged for a huge magic stone. He figured the stone became the brain of the robots. She reminded him that when he called out to Ryoke, it actually replied to him. And he got so happy, he kept talking to it over and over. Being too embarrassed, he told her to shut up and get going. Sword let her know that tackling a dungeon solo was tough. Since Ryoke was her golem, she could bring him to the exam and he would count as a weapon slot. But that was if he was actually recognized as a golem. Depending on the dungeon, sometimes maps were sold nearby. Even if it was pricey, he advised that it was better to buy one. He already had a map of this place, but since the real test didn't allow maps, they would go without one, this time on purpose. Sword also pointed out that it was pitch black inside the cave. Indra was annoyed by this, asking if the dungeon core didn't turn on the lights out of kindness. Sword then mentioned that the dungeon wasn't some noble's mansion, inviting her in with a warm welcome. If everything she said was summed up, it sounded like a tourist attraction meant to draw crowds. Sword told her that in a situation like this, the basic thing to do was to light a torch. Indra then put a device on her head that shone light into the cave. She called it a headlight. Sword was freaked out at how she was casually using light magic like it was nothing. She explained that the device was to be worn on the head so both hands could stay free. Plus, it lit up wherever one looked. She questioned whether people in this world were suicidal for using torches in caves. Fire burned by consuming one of the essential components humans needed to breathe from the air. So, it made sense that if one burned a torch in a poorly ventilated cave, they'd pass out in no time. Once again, Sword was the dumb guy who knew nothing about this. Our protagonist told him that before calling her a know-it-all, he should try asking why something was the way it was. This world ran on mana. With mana, one could do almost anything, but there were still other essential elements that mattered. Of course, not everything worked the same as the world she came from, but she had personally confirmed the principles of fire here. Still, if there was some airflow, a torch might have a nice old-fashioned charm to it. Sword told her not to use it just for aesthetics. She remarked that light wasn't technically a spell. Actually, she had programmed a few other spells she could use into Ryoke. The robot's eyes suddenly glowed bright as it scanned everywhere. Within seconds, it was done mapping the first floor and quickly displayed the map. Sword was so amazed, he had no idea what to say. Meanwhile, Indra praised her robot for doing a good job. Ryoke started blushing, but our protagonist explained that this was just a basic routine and that the robot hadn't actually learned it. With the map, she was able to point out all the areas that had traps in them. Eventually, Ryoke got tired and Sword started to think it was actually an idiot. Immediately afterward, they were able to proceed safely, bypassing all the traps in the cave. Indra remarked that clearing a dungeon with a map was boring. There was zero of that exciting, we're on an adventure feeling. Sword warned her not to ever say that in front of a real adventurer. They had come pretty far in. The next moment she looked up and they were standing in front of the boss's room. Opening the door, she could tell it didn't form naturally. She wondered why nobody in this world cared about stuff like this. Then she noticed a giant ogre sitting where the dungeon's core was. Upon noticing her, the monster slowly stood up. Our protagonist apologized for showing up out of nowhere and using violence, but at least she would kill him instantly, so she asked that the monster forgive her. The monster let out a frightening roar and charged toward her. With its giant axe, it shattered the ground. However, our protagonist easily evaded the attack and sliced off the boss's head before it could even react. Immediately after, Sword asked her why she talked to monsters like she was trying to be cool. She explained that it was terrible to be one-sidedly killed by someone who barged into one's home. So, it was the least she could do out of courtesy. She was confused as she saw the monster's body dissipating. Apparently, monsters born from the dungeon didn't leave remains. After a while, they would revive. As long as the dungeon core existed, it was effectively permanent. After the corpse was gone, a chest materialized in front of them. Staring at it, Indra doubted that this was actually coming from the dungeon core. Sword told her not to sweat the details and just open it up. Opening the box, they saw a potion inside, and he told her that she got the good one. Seeing that chest could be a hit or miss, she felt this was just turning into more of an attraction. It was basically a price to entertain the customers. Even though they didn't lose anything, this little brat wasn't fine with the way things turned out. Sword then told her that she got a low-grade healing potion. Other things that could pop out were antidotes or mana recovery potions. Even low-grade healing potions were rare to begin with. Commoners normally used medicinal herbs after all. As they proceeded to leave, our protagonist thanked the dungeon. Sword was confused as to what the hell she was doing. Back at the Adventurers Guild, Indra completed her registration for the C-rank exam. Then, Sword met up with her, and she asked if he was doing some kind of paperwork as well. He confirmed it, leaving her a bit confused. Immediately after, they walked into a house, and she freaked out, seeing that Sword had rented it. She had told him it was fine to sleep out in the forest, but he told her not to get so gloomy about it. With her magic, even camping out could feel like staying at a high-class inn. So, she didn't get why he bothered paying rent to get such a filthy place. Our protagonist didn't have money, so she was already making him pick up the cost. And he wouldn't let her pay because he always told her he had money and it was fine. A little kid like her was being done a favor, but she still complained. Sword then told her to come in, letting her know that this kind of thing was part of the thrill of adventuring. Immediately after, Sword was slamming an empty glass on the ground as he lay drunk on the ground. Indra was irritated, seeing that he rented this place just for this. She tried warning him that alcohol could lead to addiction, but he claimed having it once in a while wouldn't hurt. Besides, she used to snore away without a care, even in the forest. However, our protagonist hadn't been able to relax at all. Adventurers coordinated with each other while camping out. He told her that whenever he camped with other adventurers, it was nothing but trouble, so he tried to avoid it if he could. Still, adventurers were known to encounter all sorts of situations. Jobs came up where it wasn't just the both of them, and they'd have to handle it with a crowd. In that case, they couldn't say no. She figured if it was a job they couldn't refuse, it was probably urgent and important anyway. If they refused it, it basically meant quitting being an adventurer. It wasn't like she was completely incapable of cooperating either. Even so, Indra couldn't completely trust the people of this world. Sword understood her, and he advised that she should take care of her first and use others if she had to for that. He promised to stay by her side, and he meant it. But accidents always went beyond what one could predict. So, until he could get to her in times like that, she had to take care of herself. She stared at him in admiration. Slowly, she realized that all along, from the very beginning, what she really wanted was to rely on someone. And to have someone stay by her side, together. Staring at Sword, who was completely wasted from the alcohol, she decided to leave Ryoke on guard so he could take a rest. As for her, she was going sightseeing. He advised her to take the robot with her, believing no one would be dumb enough to pick a fight with someone walking around with a golem. She argued that there were definitely people like that. Idiots who couldn't even recognize her strength, let alone Ryoke's. They were crawling around everywhere. Sword suddenly wanted to come with her, but she stomped on his face, telling him to just rest. Besides, if she walked next to him right now, the combo of alcohol breath and old man smell made her want to puke up her breakfast. Hearing that, he kicked the little runt out. To think she was even worrying about him. Outside, some little kids were amazed seeing her robot. She told them it was a golem known as Ryoke, and when it spoke, they were even more surprised. Indra then decided to ask them for a favor. Ryoke was still in the middle of learning, and there was a lot he didn't know yet. So she asked the kids to teach him a few things. She started out by asking the name of a shop she pointed out. The kids told her it was a weapon shop, a place that sold weapons, and Ryoke repeated after them. They went ahead teaching him the names of different shops. She remarked that it was hard for Ryoke to learn much when it was just her teaching. So she would have him talk with the kids to build up his vocabulary. And she'd like him to pick up a more childlike way of speaking while he was at it. Suddenly, a girl behind her, Kathy, told her friend she was going to buy some herbs because the exams were coming up soon. Indra and the girl turned to face each other, and as they locked eyes, the girl was furious seeing her. Kathy yelled at our protagonist, asking her what she was planning to do with the kids. Then, she asked the kids to stay away from the robot. Indra wondered if this little brat was actually talking to her. She wondered who the girl was and if she knew anyone like that. She then asked Ryoke to greet the girl, which the robot happily did. Indra found it a bit sad that the greeting was so formulaic, and she wished he had more variations. But on a second thought, she decided to put her hopes in his learning function. Kathy refused to believe it was possible for such a golem to exist. She warned the kids again to get away from it. Indra thought these adventurers were all the same. They didn't even know the difference between the strong and a golem. Kathy sparked again, asking what she just said. Seems this girl is just a hot-tempered idiot. Our protagonist then told the kids not to stay away from Ryoke's side. She immediately ordered her robot to deploy the mana barrier, and it complied quickly. Meanwhile, Kathy was still telling them to get away before they get hurt. Our protagonist explained that she was just walking through town and the kids were simply teaching words to her golem. Then, Kathy showed up and started yelling at them for no reason and was even about to attack while Indra was defenseless. Being a kind soul, Indra decided to let her off because of her cute face, threatening her adventurer's license could get revoked if she tried anything. Kathy's anger only grew more. Our protagonist continued teasing to go easy on her. But Kathy refused to fall for that cheap line, stating that she wouldn't forgive Indra for the last time and now. However, Indra wondered if this wasn't the first time they were meeting. Kathy refused to be underestimated, even if Indra had an S-rank adventurer as a mentor. Immediately, she started chanting a spell. While she was still chanting, Indra asked if it was Sword she was referring to as the S-rank adventurer mentor. She only saw him as a partner and definitely not a mentor. Plus, she didn't recall ever meeting Kathy before, considering she just came into town yesterday. Kathy was frustrated at how long her spell was taking, which mostly showed how useless she was. Finally, she cast the blazing flames, unleashing a huge fireball directed at Ryokei's barrier. The kids screamed in terror, but suddenly the flames vanished. They were all stunned and speechless. It seemed our protagonist didn't even need to have Ryokei activate the barrier. The kids praised her for being so cool. They asked what she did just now. So, Indra decided to explain why fire burned. There were components in the air that helped fire burn along with the base essence of magic. So if those elements were removed, the fire would vanish instantly. She was getting a little too overconfident with all the praise. Bystanders then came by, surprised by the robot and wondering what was going on. Our protagonist was getting teary-eyed, wondering what to do. She thought about having Ryokei call over Sword to help her. Immediately after, Kathy's friend yelled out her name. Kathy fell to her knees as her friend scolded her for causing a commotion just when the exam was about to start. Indra reminded Kathy that she was going to let her off if she stopped, but the girl just had to start chanting a spell. Kathy's friend looked at her with threatening eyes, asking if she was trying to pick a fight. A man then approached from behind Indra, asking what was going on here. Seeing that he was a guild official, she tried to explain that she didn't do anything. Before she could barely get the words out, Kathy started screaming that it was Indra's fault. She swore she wouldn't calm down until Indra ate her words and was taken down. Then the official asked which of them had used magic. All hands pointed at Kathy, and the girl realized how foolish she was. All those tears in her eyes were worthless. The guild official then asked if Indra's robot was a monster, but she tried to tell him that it was a golem. Though it clearly didn't look like it, he was shocked, hearing that she made the golem herself. She made it in her own way. So unlike other mages' golems, it didn't move with a single command. It needed to learn, so she had been walking it around the city and teaching it different things. Along the way, the kids talked to her and offered to help. That's when Kathy showed up, blasting magic at our protagonist to make her eat her words. The man was still thinking about the situation, but she told him that everything was already explained. Immediately after, Sword dashed toward Indra, yelling out her name. Before she could tell him anything, his fist landed on her face, sending her into the sky like a shooting star. As she crashed to the ground, he yelled, asking what the hell she was doing again. Sword yelled at Indra to stop egging people on and making the situation worse. She explained that it was out of her control and she wasn't egging anyone on. He was the one whose scolding kept getting harsher. As the guild official approached him, he showed his adventurer card. Everyone was shocked to see that he was the one known as Lord Thunderclap Whitefang. Even Indra was confused. Sword then told the man that she was his partner, and even if the girls had said something rude, he begged the man to forgive them this time on his account. The official told him that he only came because there was a report of offensive magic being used in the city. Meanwhile, everyone else was shocked to hear that our protagonist was actually Sword's partner. After that, Indra tried to make it clear that she wasn't the one at fault here. Sword assumed she used that taunt skill of hers to make the girl snap, but she told him that she was just teaching Ryoke things and playing with the kids. He was shocked to hear that she could actually get along with the kids. I honestly wonder what this guy sees this girl as. Then, she claimed to be the hero of boys and girls everywhere. An old man came up to them, letting Sword and the official know that Indra wasn't using magic. He saw just having fun with the golem, and none of the children seemed upset or crying either. With that settled, Sword and Indra were free to go. As for Kathy and her friend, the official called them over. Indra then asked Sword if he knew that girl, but he had never seen her before. However, she seemed to know Indra. He figured it was one of those "I know you, but you don't know me" types. Flashing his rank card was something he hated having to use to intimidate people. Indra apologized about that and told him that at least it worked on her. If it were our protagonist, she wouldn't have cared and would have just walked off. All because she saw him as just a smelly old man, which he didn't appreciate. She asked if he was still holding a grudge. This girl really knows how to push someone's buttons. She told him that if he washed properly, he wouldn't smell. Plus, he needed to stop drinking so much alcohol. But rather than do that, Sword preferred to stay as a smelly old man. The exam day finally arrived. Indra asked Sword if exams in this world were supposed to have parental supervision, given that he was there as her guardian. He told her it was necessary, since someone loved to cause chaos. She told him he was like one of those overexcited parents at a school visit and asked him not to interfere with the exam. But she was the one who was always causing trouble, and he was here to keep an eye on her. Immediately after, an official arrived and was shocked to see them here already. Indra told him that they walked and ran a bit to get here. Still, this place was pretty far away from town. Her attention turned to Sword, who was yawning tirelessly. She asked if he was okay, especially since he'd been drinking every day lately. He assured her that he was fine, since he had taken an antidote. But she yelled at him not to drink to the point of needing medicine. He assumed that she could make antidotes herself, but it wasn't that. Medicine in this world came from dungeon materials. Once one drank it, they'd be instantly healed and detoxed. Indra's parents were apothecaries in another world, so she learned a fair bit. Medicine was supposed to enhance the body's natural healing ability. Sword didn't care about any of that. He asked her to make some for him next time, brushing her off completely. Immediately after, she turned around, seeing the girl she had issues with yesterday. She remarked that it was good she didn't get her license revoked. And the girl claimed she was just trying to help. Indra was forced to gain an adult-level education when she was a child, which made her ask if commoners interpreted, "I'll make you eat your words, as I'll come to the rescue." The girl was immediately angered. Sword then confirmed that this wasn't normal. The girl started yelling like a deranged idiot, saying they'd never lose to someone like her, and they would beat Indra and laugh right in her face. Our protagonist provoked them further by stating that they were at that age when they were all fiery and desperate to prove themselves. The girl then mentioned the Crimson Lily is a maiden's oath, asking if that party name rang a bell. Indra was shocked to her boots, seeing that parties could have names. Slowly, she called Sword and asked if they were a party, which he confirmed. Suddenly, she started crying, asking if they had some cringy name like that. He assured that he didn't give them that type of name. But at this point, he couldn't understand what made her cry every time. Indra claimed the name was so lame it scared her. However, everyone's taste was different, though she said it just didn't suit her. After that, one of the girls explained that a few years ago they were active in the town of Ears. They had just been promoted to E rank when the guild approached them, informing them that there was a kid being looked after by an S rank adventurer. The girl had talents but was still new. So they wanted the party to teach her a few things and let them know that she could use a sword and magic, making her useful as a vanguard. With just the three of them, it was going to get tough sooner or later. They had just been talking about adding another frontliner, so they agreed. After getting the signal from the guild, they went to talk to the girl, only to get ignored, and it turned out that the girl was Indra. After our protagonist recalled, she punched Sword, asking if he was listening. She then apologized to the three girls. At the time, she only knew her house well, her estate, and the forest. Then, some adventurer dragged her out and suddenly abandoned her. She'd lost trust in people because of that. It wasn't just them. She had ignored and shut out everyone, but that didn't excuse her rudeness. So, she apologized once more. Sword also admitted his wrongdoings to Indra. He apologized and explained that he wasn't letting her team up with anyone else again. The girl said it was fine. It wasn't like they'd know what to do if she asked to join them now. Still, it didn't sit right with them when Indra got promoted to D rank afterward. Kathy started yelling about how hard it was for them to reach E rank. Having an E rank look after a G rank was already a huge privilege. And they went out of their way to talk to Indra, only to be ignored. Our protagonist already apologized for ignoring them. Besides, most of the reason was because of Sword. So, they were free to take it up with him. And the one who promoted her was the Ease Guild Master. Kathy accused our protagonist of always acting all high and mighty, hiding behind powerful people. Indra told her not to get so worked up because it would ruin that cute face of hers. Kathy was freaked out, wondering if that was supposed to be teasing or just an old man comment. Indra was just trying to calm her down, and if they were going by that logic, it would make her the old lady. Immediately after, a guy walked up to them, remarking that it must be nice being a rule-breaking exam taker. He added that it looked like the ones guaranteed to pass, thanks to their S-rank connections, were sure relaxed. Our protagonist then understood that was how they saw her. She turned to Sword, who was staring at the guys with a menacing aura. Indra didn't get how he ended up being her partner in the first place, but to people of that level, she understood how it looked to them. But Sword knew she would probably clear the dungeon on her own strength without needing any S-rank connection. She reminded him that he told her not to cause trouble. Our protagonist was planning to finish quietly without even looking at the map, but he took those words back and told her to clear it as fast as she could. So, Indra happily switched to a non-stop speedrun mode. The guild officials arrived and all the participants lined up. The lady would now explain the C-rank promotion exam for adventurers. The exam would take place in a dungeon located a short distance from there. First, they had to reach the dungeon on their own. From there, they would proceed to the boss room and defeat the dungeon boss. Then, they needed to bring back the tag found beyond that room, which would make them pass the exam. However, taking too long would result in disqualification. Indra wondered if beyond the boss room was where the dungeon core was. Either way, she needed to be careful not to accidentally destroy it all. Meanwhile, Kathy was trying to cheer up her party member, telling her not to doubt herself now. Immediately after, all 5 participant teams were given the go-ahead to commence the exam. Without a moment's delay, our protagonist dashed forward with her golem, leaving the others shocked. One of the guys laughed at her, calling her crazy for running around blindly at that speed. He wondered if that connections-based applicant had never been in a dungeon before. On the other hand, Indra wondered if the others could really make it in time going that slow. Judging by the mana density, she sensed where the dungeon was. In no time, she found a guild official by the entrance. As she dashed past him, he was shocked to see an applicant already. Obviously, the plot armor on her was extraordinary. She quickly moved in and evaded the horned rabbits that showed up in front of her. "Ryoke?" then shot out a laser that turned the monsters to dust instantly. Going through the door ahead, Indra brought up the map and was able to locate the boss room. As she swung the doors open, she saw a large horned rabbit, which happened to be the boss. The monster's eyes locked on her with fury, but our protagonist was unfazed. She dived toward it, slicing off its head effortlessly. Once the monster was down, she proceeded to the door ahead of her. Opening it, the man inside was scared to his bones. She explained that she was an applicant and kindly asked for a tag. He was confused, asking when the exam started. She told him that it started quite a while ago and that she was going for a non-stop speedrun clear. But now, she had to stop. Meanwhile, other participants were barely halfway through. After the man gave her the tag, she told him to give her regards to the dungeon core. He realized that she was the S-rank adventurer's apprentice. But he was mistaken. She wasn't an apprentice, but his partner. No way in hell would she agree to be Sword's apprentice. He acknowledged that she was the fastest, first one here. Meanwhile, the other adventurers were having a hard time dealing with the monsters in the dungeon. Some were injured, and the healer was tending to their wounds. Suddenly, the monster stopped moving, and they turned around. The adventurers couldn't understand why. Then, one of them yelled out that something was coming. It turned out to be Indra, riding on Ryoke, and she quickly zoomed past them. The rest were stunned. Then, our protagonist wished them luck, letting them know they were on the right path. This left them completely speechless. Immediately after, she arrived back where the exam started. Sword remarked that she was a little slower than he expected. She explained that she had to stop midway to talk to the examiner who gave her the tag. But he was only kidding. If she had time to chat and still made it this fast, she basically sprinted the whole way. After all, that was the rule. To her, it felt like a real adventure, and it was pretty fun. One of the examiners then walked up to her, asking if she had her tag. She submitted it and asked if there was anything else. He then told her to wait for the results. Once all participants were finished, they would return to the guild and announce the results in an hour. Since all participants had entered the dungeon, he suggested they wait by the entrance. Indra hoped it wouldn't take so long. However, Sword told her not to measure by their standards. Normally, clearing the dungeon took 2 or 3 days. So, they would have to set up camp and wait. When they got to the dungeon entrance, one of the examiners realized he wasn't seeing things and commended Indra, referring to her as Thunderclap White Fang's apprentice. Suddenly, she threw her hat to the ground. With her body trembling, she mentioned that she'd been hearing that phrase a lot lately and often missed it when people said it. So, she asked the examiner to repeat what he just said. Once he mentioned Sword's title again, our protagonist looked like she had heard the worst thing in her life. She screamed out at Sword, asking him what that unbelievably embarrassing name was. Why would he ever call himself something so humiliating? Indra was so annoyed by the name because it made no sense to her, and it was so cringe. It was making her tear up. Hearing her say this made him want to cry. She told him to drop the ridiculous title because he'd never be able to show his face in town again. He tried to explain that he didn't name himself that, but she then asked what the hell she was supposed to do. After that, she asked if he was the type to mutter, "My right hand throbs." At this point, she was treating it like a disease. Sword was even more freaked out that she admitted it. Our protagonist claimed that people with that kind of naming style supposedly said things like, "Ugh, the evil eye sealed in my right eye aches." It was apparently some kind of condition where they muttered stuff like that. Sword questioned who the hell even sealed things inside their own body. If it were him, he'd seal a demon somewhere no human or monster could get close to. She explained that Sealing was like a cool, aspirational word in other worlds. This only made Sword certain that other worlds seriously made no sense. Then he made it clear to the examiners that Indra was his partner and not an apprentice. Immediately after, she decided to focus on getting dinner ready. While they chopped up meat and pitched tents, Sword went hunting. Slowly, the other adventurers started coming out, and they were given food as well. Most of them were completely exhausted. Some still had the energy to yap, while others wanted to sleep. Eventually, our protagonist asked if this wasn't taking too long. It had already been 5 days. She got so bored in that time that she upgraded Real K's map to display in 3D. She asked Sword if the others could really still be in the cave all this time. Looking at the examiners, he noticed that there had been some movement. The examiners then thanked the others for their patience. As for the 2 teams that still hadn't returned, it seemed they hadn't been able to locate them, and it appeared that the 2 teams had ventured deep into the cave. It was kind of a backward request to issue a request to the examinees themselves, but the guild officially requested the rescue of the 2 lost teams. This was a formal rescue request. Thanks for watching, and thanks to all of the supporters that made this video possible. If you would like to help the channel, please use the QR code in the screen. And last but not least, a super thanks to our high-ranking supporters: Arizona Gold, 1090, Fallen Stella, Joel Alvarado, Kildrak, Hitsuka, Lucifer High-Rise, Not Omega's Foot Fungus, Pawe Jajeski,